Welcome to this edition of Critical Mass Radio Show. I am your host, Rick Franzi. Tom Coss, who is founder and CEO of Heart Cloud Incorporated, is our guest today, and I'm excited to have him in the studio. Tom, I'm glad you're here.
Rick, delighted to be here. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I'd like to thank our sponsors as well, Center Club, Decision Toolbox, MBN Design, Sunup Group, and T & Company for their continued support of Critical Mass Radio Show, streaming live on octalkradio.net. If you'd like to learn more about the radio show and our firm, feel free to visit my website, criticalmass, M-A-S-S, for F-O-R, business.com. Heart Cloud, Inc. is putting a new twist to cloud-based technology, and we've talked numerous times on the show about the application of cloud-based technology and how it's disrupting and enhancing many different industries. We're going to talk about it in the health care today. Tom and his team are extending cloud computing technology to help clients manage health and weight. With each data collected from commercial products used to monitor clients at home is a step closer to helping improve effectiveness and health for those living with chronic diseases. I'm glad that Tom is here today. As I said, he is the founder and CEO of Heart Cloud, and we're going to share and he's going to discuss how cloud-based technology and his platform work hand in hand to improve lives. All right, Tom, I mentioned in the open about cloud-based technologies. How did you come to implementing cloud-based technology within your firm?
Well, we began on the cloud largely because that's the best way to allow the capture of data from the home. And matter of fact, if not for the cloud, it wouldn't have been even possible to do that at a price point that made sense to the customer.
So I'd like to assume very little on the radio show, Tom. So I'm wondering if you could, in your own words, describe what's meant by cloud computing.
Well, cloud computing simply means that a server somewhere in the world exists with your name on it, and you can run applications through a standard web browser over the internet. And so that's really kind of what it boils down to. We run a full SQL database. It doesn't have any relevance to the customer at all. It's just it's a tool that we use, but it does allow us the ability to capture data from all over the United States. So we capture patients from Florida to Chicago and Cleveland, and of course here as well. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't matter to the data. Right.
From other entrepreneurs that we've had on the show, and I'm talking with Tom Coss, cloud computing can really accelerate the business model in the sense that the cost per computing cycle is so much more reasonable because it's sort of almost on-demand usage, and you can scale the infrastructure so much more easily because, as you said, it's off in someone else's property, right?
Correct.
Is that part of the reason why you went with?
Well, that and the ability to capture data from people's homes. There would be no real way of doing that if, say, a server lived in my house or something like that. It wouldn't even be a choice.
Right. All right. So we're talking about the firm that Tom started and is now the CEO, Heart Cloud Incorporated. And I first met Tom and encountered his firm at the Kelf State Fullerton annual economic forecast.
Correct, yes.
Right.
Indeed.
So we ran into each other just casually, and I was intrigued by the business and what he's doing and how he's helping clients. And also part of what we're going to talk about today here on Critical Mass Radio Show is how a good idea and a good technology can grow into other aspects, other business areas, and how you can grow your offering once you have kind of platform figured out and an underlying technology. So I've been excited to have Tom on the show since he and I met those many months ago, so we're here now. But let's look at Heart Cloud. I said a little bit about it in the open, but in your words, Tom, what is it that your firm does?
Well, we began trying to really solve a specific problem, and that was patients that are living with heart failure have a propensity to gain weight very quickly. And when you gain 3 to 5 pounds in 24 hours, it's not fat.
In 24 hours?
In 24 hours. It's typically water weight, and that's a chronic problem with patients with heart failure. So what I began with is kind of a mind test, if you will, of how is it we can keep an eye on patients when they're at home and understand these problems, and what would be the best way to do that. And really it became really simple to just monitor their weight.
So why do you need to know their weight so early? Are you getting them to do something based on that? What happens when you trigger and go, uh-oh, Tom, Rick Franzi just gained 3 pounds overnight.
Right. Then if we pick up an abrupt weight change, we can intervene real quickly and solve a problem that in 3 to 5 days might result in an emergency room visit.
Okay.
And that'll be about a $12,000 expense. And we can avoid those consequences by intervening quite early.
So you're really by getting that information much more quickly, you can react and solve the problem at a much lower price point for the healthcare system. At a much lower
price point. And heart failure is kind of like the clinical equivalent of waterboarding. When people they gain so much water weight, they have difficulty breathing. It's an incredibly uncomfortable problem. It happens to be one of the largest expenses in all of healthcare. It's the number one discharge diagnosis in the United States. It costs about $35 billion a year. To solve this problem, that if we capture these little changes early, we can avoid an awful lot of that.
How did you even tell me a little bit about how you even discovered this as an opportunity as an entrepreneur?
Well, I started my career as an RN. I became an RN to work my way to pay for graduate school. And in college, I studied economics. And so where these two collide is when you look at weight, it's simply a data point over time. So it's a time series data element. And so when I started looking into heart failure, it got me to think about what would be the ideal situation. If you had a chronic disease, what would be ideal for you to live with that? Well, I thought, ideally, I would like my physician to be clairvoyant, right? I would like him or her to wake up, have this vibe, and maybe if I'm getting off the rail and I'm getting sicker,
right?
I would want he or she to wake up in the morning, and go, hey, I think Tom's pretty sick. I better give him a call and have him come into the office.
Okay.
Well, clairvoyant physicians, it turns out, are really hard to come by, and so the next thing is, how close can I get to clairvoyance? And that is, how can I capture data and then learn from that data, and then have the data tell me something that the patient themselves may not know. And so that's where both the clinical side of being a heart failure nurse and also understanding time-based statistics or econometric models that can tease out the important from the unimportant, and then report that to somebody who knows what to do about it.
So this business is actually a blending of both of your educations and your practice. Is that what I hear you saying?
Correct. It brings together. I have a big background in clinical informatics, and so between the medical side of nursing, the economics, and the econometric modeling, which we use, and understanding my way around a PC, it kind of all connected at once.
Right. So we're talking with Tom Coss, and he is the founder and CEO of HeartCloud Incorporated. When did you launch HeartCloud?
It launched actually in the end of March 30th of 2013.
Okay. So we're coming up on our 3-year anniversary?
Correct.
Okay.
And we've been monitoring patients since then, slowly bringing on more and more as we learn more.
Okay. It's time to take our first commercial break here on Critical Mass Radio Show. When we come back, we're going to continue the conversation with Tom, and what we're going to get into in the next segment, and the reason why you want to stay around for 90 seconds to hear this if you're listening to us live on octalkradio.net is I'm intrigued about, now that the platform is built and the information is working, what other areas of opportunity do you see for this intrinsic business model in other applications? Can we talk about that?
Absolutely.
All right. Don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be right back with Tom after these words from our sponsors.
Richard Franzi is the author of 2 popular business books for CEOs. His first book, Critical Mass, The 10 Explosive Powers of CEO Peer Groups, was the first book ever written on the secret value of CEO peer groups. His second book, now with newly updated information, is Critical Mass, The Power of CEO Guiding Principles. Richard's books contain powerful information to help CEOs running middle-market companies gain valuable insight to improve their decision-making skills. Richard's books are available as paperbacks or Kindle versions from Amazon.com. To find them, type Richard Franzi in the search box.
Hey, did you know that over 73% of consumer packaged goods and retail products fail miserably within their first year? Why? Because they find themselves in the pit of unawareness. You don't want to go there. Call me, and I'll make sure that your packaging gets noticed. You know how I know? Because I'm the founder and creative director of MBN Design. We're one of Orange County's most established and trusted design firms. With over 20 years of experience, I can ensure that your brand will always stay new. Ask me how our packaging sold millions in months, or see for yourself other success stories on our website at www.mbndesign.com. We're MBN because we're making brands new. Call 714-458-8701 and talk to me, Hector Garcia. That's my cell, 714-458-8701. I'll be waiting for your call.
I just wanted to share with you my experience as a member of Center Club in Costa Mesa. Many of you know that I've been a member of the club for over 6 years. I hold my monthly CEO peer group meetings there, my annual executive conferences, and my daily business meetings at the club. I found the club staff to be both professional and courteous. My guests enjoy meeting at Center Club with its newly remodeled meeting rooms, dining rooms, and common areas. If you're looking for a place to conduct meetings, host events, or meet some of Orange County's most successful business leaders, then consider joining Center Club in Costa Mesa. For more information regarding club membership and private events, say you have an upcoming birthday or a wedding, it's a great place for those kind of activities. Visit the club's website at center-club.com. All right, and welcome back to Critical Mass Radio Show, streaming live on octalkradio.net. I'd like to let you know that all of our shows can be heard anytime on iTunes, Stitcher.com, Spreaker.com. Several hundred former guest websites whose CEO have appeared on the show, and their company has placed the interview on their website. You know, since we started our show in 2009, we've reached over 170,000 listeners with our podcast. Simply type in Critical Mass Radio Show in your podcasting software to find and subscribe to our shows, and listen live 4 to 5 p.m. here on octalkradio.net. Tom Coss, founder and CEO of Heart Cloud Incorporated, is our guest. You know, Tom, during the break, one of our listeners asked if you could just sort of explain the underlying technology. How does Heart Cloud acquire this information from your patients?
Well, that's a great question. We started with commercial scales, just bathroom scales that already connect to the internet via Wi-Fi. And
so they have those?
They have those.
Bathroom scales that connect to the
Wi-Fi.
Oh, I don't know that I want people knowing that.
And the good news is many of these companies have APIs that allow us to connect to their data. So we connect data to commercial as well as one private service or manufacturer of scales.
I'm still stuck on the fact that manufacturers have created scales with Wi-Fi internet.
It's astounding.
Yeah, it is astounding.
Well, that's what kind of started to my surprise. I came home with this idea, and I thought, well, I wonder if there is one. And it turned out there was.
See, I love doing this show, Critical Mass Radio Show, because we realize how sometimes unintended positive consequences can happen from technical innovation, right? I'm innovating technology in this area for this reason, and then other entrepreneurs look and go, well, hell, if that works over there, maybe I can use it to solve this problem over here.
That's right.
I don't know that the people that make the scales with a Wi-Fi connection were intending for you as an entrepreneur to build a platform around it. There probably was for some other reason, like data collection in a different sense, right?
Right. It was for the individual. And so there are these scales you can buy. They'll tell you about you. And that's great if you're self-motivated, but there are a lot of people that needed to share that data with others.
Right.
And others, particularly nurses with a clinical background that can look at it from a different perspective. In that process, we learned that many of these commercial scales had galvanic sensors in it that measure body fat percent, which, though interesting, is not indicated for anybody with a pacemaker. So we had to really look really hard for a manufacturer that did not have the galvanic body fat percent sensors, because we never know when one of our patients is going to end up with a pacemaker.
Okay, so you're saying that platform, that scale, interrupts or doesn't work with someone who has a pacemaker?
Yeah, there's certainly a risk of deprogramming the pacemaker.
Oh, so it's even more serious than that. Yeah, we
Correct.
probably don't want them standing on that scale then.
We don't
We should
want that.
avoid that if we can.
So it took a while. We had to wait until another one became available, and
Okay.
we had to go through the FDA clearance process, which that's the scale we currently focus on now.
Okay, so tell me about the early days when it was either in a beta site where you were testing this, how did you go from I got the technology, now I need to get it into the field and only learn, because as an entrepreneur, right, there's some things you can only learn by doing.
That is so correct, and that's what we needed to do. I happen to have a dear friend of mine, fairly young with heart failure, and as soon as I was able to connect the scale to the clinical database that I use, I asked him would he step on a scale for me every day, and he lives in Cleveland, Ohio. So I sent it to him, and he's been on it ever since, and then slowly brought on other people to, really discover, what do I need to do? How is the data useful to the patient without overwhelming the patient? And then, more importantly, how do they want to see it? And that's what brought us to taking that data and posting it in a text message back to the patient and to their loved ones, so that everybody knows Dad's getting off the rail, or he's behaving himself.
Okay.
So it's really a means of letting the data do what, without shaming the individual, or just letting the data tell those around the patient that the patient's doing okay. And if they're not doing okay, to let those with a clinical background look at it and direct them to their physician.
So I'm talking with Tom Coss. He is founder and CEO of HeartCloud. We're talking about one element of his business, and sort of we're still in the formative stages, in the early days of the evolution of the business. How were the doctors receptive to your technology? What did you find when you went to the medical community offering this accelerated information and ability?
Well, that was a fascinating story, because I went to a physician doing kind of the pre-market research on this, and I said, well, I have this vision of being able to monitor a patient's weight remotely. And he said, well, good luck with that, because I can get women to step on the scale when they come in for a physical. And I thought, well, I kind of get it.
Right.
That's a different kind of environment than what I'm offering. But what I also discovered, though, is that once people trust that you're not going to shame them with this data, that you're actually using it to monitor them, they become very, very appreciative that somebody's got their back. And that with the econometrics, or the modeling we use, we're able to tease out seemingly small but perhaps materially significant data much earlier than they would otherwise discover. And we just call them and say, you better tell your doctor.
Right. And are the doctors getting notified too, or is it, as you described earlier, it's really intended for the patient and their immediate family?
Right. We are an agent of the patient, and that for HIPAA reasons and others seems to be the most efficient means by which to deliver this to the patient without making it turning it into some kind of bureaucratic problem.
Okay, so we're hopscotching around here, but we're talking with Tom Coss. I'm fascinated by what you do. So how helpful have the scale manufacturers been in getting your product and your concepts deployed?
Well, they've been delightful. The one in particular we use, because it's FDA cleared, has been absolutely fabulous. A company, Blipcare, out of Chicago.
Blipcare?
Blipcare is the name of the company.
Okay.
And they do just brilliant work. And they've been just as gracious as we could ever hope for. And so they have the technology. We're pursuing a different market with that technology outside the hospital, inside the patient's home, and also trying to create it in a way that's more emergent, using the structure of existing healthcare, and not trying to kind of displace it in any way, but enhancing the efficiency and the effectiveness of caregivers and family members. Many of these patients, it's just their family members taking care of them.
Right.
And they're the first to get the call in the middle of the night, Dad's having shortness of breath kind of thing. So we actually are more of an agent of the family and the patient than of their caregiver.
Going back to the first segment when you explained how much less expensive it is to capture the weight gain early rather than waiting, it's sort of like an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure in this sense, right? Exactly. So if we catch it early, not only do we save the system money, but I would think the positive impact on the patient is greatly enhanced as well.
Well, it's true.
Because they don't have to go through all this stuff that costs all the money.
Exactly.
Right? They're suffering through that.
They're suffering through that. Nobody wants to spend the evening in the ER. And but more importantly, it also helps them physiologically, in that the fewer episodes of heart failure one goes through, the better off the patient's going to be in the long haul.
Okay, because the organism
isn't being taxed with huge stresses put on it already.
Wow. So the list of benefits is pretty long, right? For taking this one simple action. Step on a scale every day.
Yeah, Rick, you're absolutely right. I mean, it seems silly, but it's absolutely the case. It's something very simple. It's a slow pitch over the middle of the plate, and it works incredibly well.
So how do you find the people who would be most predisposed to saying yes?
Typically, we try to do that through their physicians, or through other caregivers that are struggling with loved ones that may not even be in their state. It doesn't matter for us. It's on the cloud, right?
Right.
So if somebody's got a loved one that lives out of state that's got heart failure, and they can just call us up. We make certain they get a scale, get them set up. And then the family member, and then the patient gets the data on their cell phone every day. And when you think about it, when you look at, if your parent gets up in the morning and weighs themselves, well, you also know something else. They're out of bed and they're going on about their life.
That's true.
All's good.
Right, because I would think for remote caregivers, children, this also helps on the psychological level, which is feeling like you're doing as much as you can to help your parent who's in Ohio or in a different geography than you.
Absolutely.
So it brings them sort of closer together then, too, I would think.
Without hounding them. It's just the act of standing on. All they have to do is stand on the scale. Period. They don't even have to look at the number. It's not relevant that they do. Just stand on the scale. The system takes care of the rest.
Well, we're talking with Tom Coss, and we're talking about his firm, Heart Cloud Incorporated. He's founder and CEO of this fine firm, which is doing great work, started in 2013. I told you when we were stepping into the last break, ladies and gentlemen, that we were going to talk about the opportunities that this technology and platform have afforded them beyond their initial effort, and we didn't get to that. So that's bad on me, because I got so wrapped up in the other conversation. I'm going to keep it for one more segment.
Absolutely.
And promise, Scouts honor, pinky swear, whatever you want to say, ladies and gentlemen. Tom and I are going to talk about that when we come back from this commercial break.
If you are an Orange County business executive, this message is for you. Do you ever feel isolated with no place to turn for advice or feedback? Who holds you accountable to your commitments in your company? Where do you find the right resources to help you and your company grow? If you have these questions, then Critical Mass for Business might be the answer for you. Critical Mass for Business is committed to helping you make better decisions. These are groups of peers running businesses just like you, providing a great sounding board to test ideas and concepts, review plans and goals, and present issues and opportunities for discussion. The result is improved strategy, accountability, people, and execution skills. If you are interested in learning more, go to www.criticalmassforbusiness.com and learn more about our executive peer group.
When it comes to pioneers in their respective industries, we all know the Apples, Starbucks, and Trader Joe's of the world. In the realm of recruiting, Decision Toolbox is the industry's best-kept secret. With 90% of their business from referrals and repeat customers. For over 20 years, Decision Toolbox's U.S.-based team of recruiters, sourcers, professional writers, quality personnel, and tech support has perfected a Six Sigma approach to talent management. No matter the size of the project, Decision Toolbox delivers incredible results. A cost per hire less than half of what contingency firms charge, with the winning candidate presented in an average of 14 days, all with a 12-month candidate warranty. With results like that, Decision Toolbox won't be a secret for long. Visit us at www.dtoolbox.com for more information.
Successfully navigating the changing world of public relations and digital marketing requires an experienced, tenacious, yet gracious team. In business for more than 20 years, Orange County-based T & Company delivers big agency results with personalized service. For more information, call us at 714-536-8407 or visit us online at tandco.me.
Welcome back to this episode of Critical Mass Radio Show. I am your host, Rick Franzi. I'd like to let you know that if you listen to our show via iTunes, I would ask you, or really any of the podcasting software, but specifically iTunes, because it is one of the larger platforms that people listen to us on, maybe you could take a minute and write a review about the radio show. This is a powerful way for you to help us grow our audience of business executives. It brings our ratings up, makes us easier to find for others who might be looking for the kind of content that we deliver here each week on octalkradio.net live. This is Critical Mass Radio Show. As I said earlier, since 2009, we've reached over 170,000 listeners with our weekly podcast. All right, Tom, welcome back to the program. Let's continue the conversation about your firm, Heart Cloud Incorporated. And so let's deal with it right now. What other markets are looking like they're an opportunity for you as an entrepreneur beyond your initial focus on heart disease and weight gain?
Well, great question. What we discovered rather surprisingly was that everybody that we put on Heart Cloud for the original purposes ended up losing weight. And in and of itself, that wasn't a big deal, except for the way the database was designed. It caused some trouble in discovering these alerts and alarms. And so we ended up looking at those people who just decided to lose weight, one of which told me that she was somewhat aware of her weight because she knew I was waiting, and I was watching her, and I said, well, is that a problem? And so she goes, well, no, I don't mind that you were seeing me see my weight. I just don't want to see you at Costco. Right? And I thought, how insightful. It was that she didn't mind being kind of held accountable or sharing her weight with somebody that would helpfully guide her to losing weight, but she just didn't want the shame of doing it. And so when I talked to somebody who had worked for one of the weight loss programs that they weigh their patients every week, it became clear that if you weigh yourself once a week, that's 52 data points a year.
Right.
You can't tell too much. But if you do it every day, you start seeing trends, positive and negative, and you make small choices on a daily basis. And it's less intrusive, and it's certainly less shameful to a lot of people. And it works. It improves the success of weight loss by 100%.
By regularly monitoring your weight?
Regularly, just stepping on the scale and sharing that with someone who cares for you and who's on your side.
It makes sense because the more discrete sampling you can do, the tighter the intervals on corrective action you can take, right?
You can make 365 adjustments a year. You can only do 50 a year if you weigh.
Right, because you can say, well, yesterday I did X, Y, and Z, and my weight is this, which I probably don't want to do X, Y, and Z if I'm not happy with the weight, right?
Exactly.
And if I keep doing X, Y, and Z every day, this number is going to probably keep going in the direction it changed overnight.
Yeah.
So
what we've discovered is we looked at people's average weight by day of the week, and that seems to shift by time of year. and the shift is that in the fall, when football season comes on, usually the highest weight is somewhere around Friday and Thursday. It shoots to Tuesday because of football season.
Wow. So we got the Super Bowl coming up this weekend.
Who knew? Yes.
Yeah, who knew? So is weight management now a market that you're looking at with Heart Cloud?
It is. It's one that we actually are excited about because we really are just a platform through which people can help their own patients, if they're a medical practice, or dietitians can use, or nurses that can use to help a stable of individuals that are looking for them for help.
How does that market, have you done, I'm sure you must have some sense, how does that market in size and potential compared to your original market of those people with heart disease that are managing their weight?
Well, for one thing, it's 13 times larger.
So let's just start right there. So it's 13 times.
13 times larger, and it has there are some regions in the United States where obesity is a large problem, and so
isn't a large problem across the country?
It really is. It's a third of our economy, or the population is overweight. And that kind of still, if you're really grossly overweight, you're simply in the waiting room to join the heart failure club.
Oh, okay.
Right? So,
okay.
Because your heart it's a supply and demand function. It's your heart supplies oxygen based on the demand for that oxygen, and that demand is a function of, I don't know, how much you're carrying around. And so if you really, for the heart failure patients, if they lower their weight, they lower the strain on their heart. And the same thing if you're obese, you lower the strain on your heart. It's just trying to, do the job of delivering oxygen to the tissue.
So we're talking with Tom Coss, and let's stay on the heart and the weight market being 13 times larger. What has been your experience in getting into that market, as far as you mentioned what I would think of as channel partners, right? A dietitian or someone with holistic medicine, people outside of the healthcare system, kind of alternatives and around that. So how are you bringing your platform to the ultimate end user? Are you doing it through partners then?
Well, we're trying to with partners. They're not used to having that kind of an intimate daily relationship with their clients. Typically, they come in once a week, or they maybe meet them a couple of times a week for workout coaching or something like that. And so it's part of teaching that market that this is an easy thing to do. They get their clients' weight on their cell phone. It's secure, it's private, and it's just a way to for coaches or weight loss experts to help their patients with.
Right. I would think even hire an exercise gym, an Equinox, or places that
Correct.
sort of are more customer service oriented. That might be an additional value added benefit if you had a personal trainer there.
Exactly. And it's just a matter of introducing the option to that market and getting them past this little threshold of, gee, I don't know if I want to be that intimately engaged with the clients. The clients seem to like it.
Are you collecting any other information other than basic weight change?
We of course collect wirelessly as well, blood pressure and pulse. And
how do you do that?
The same thing. It's a blood pressure cuff that connects to the customer's Wi-Fi unit inside the house. And what we try to do is just make it as easy as possible for a patient to share data with someone who cares. And so to the degree that we can capture blood pressure and pulse and weight and anything else, pulse oximetry and things like that become available, we'll be there to do that, so that those people that are loved ones within the family or even a broader unit can keep an eye on them.
So the combination, does having 3 discrete data set points on a daily basis, the 3 that you talked about, the weight, the blood pressure, and the heart rate, the beats, when you put those 3 together, using your ability to analyze data, does it give you even more information than 3 discrete points? I mean, do they interrelate, and does it tell a different story because you have more comprehensive information then?
Oh, they do. Yeah, absolutely. Then you have a little bit more, and it's amazing. You can tell so much from this if you know what to look for.
Okay.
And inside the database, we have a little bit more background on the patients, but it really does tell us, for one thing, it tells them if they're engaged in their care. I mean, if they only weigh themselves half the time, they're only about half the time engaged.
Right.
Same thing with blood pressure. So we are able to find those patients that are really actively engaged in their care, encourage them. Those less so, we try to encourage to a higher degree of participation. In the end, truth be known, is we all own our own healing.
Yes, we do.
Nobody can do that for us.
Right.
So, when given the opportunity, I've found that the patients are highly engaged.
I'm talking with Tom Coss, and we're talking about his business, Heart Cloud Incorporated. Tom, you just said something that I need to kind of back up on, because it's a fundamental belief that I have, which is in the healthcare system, you have to be an informed consumer.
Oh, God.
You can't walk there and give away all your responsibility to the experts to tell you what to do. And I would think knowledge is power in this area. And if a patient understands their daily fluctuation on these 3 across, they can have an intelligent conversation about it with their family, but also when they go and they see their doctor about what else they could do to help positively affect their trend. Because what I found is you really need to be, as a patient, asking deep questions of your care provider to get the most richness of the answers out of them, I think.
Correct.
Is that fair?
That's absolutely the case. And we can typically we can see changes that, if they're not acted upon, will eventually lead the patient to the hospital. We can discover that 28 days in advance.
Wow.
And so I also work closely with a group of faith-based nurses out of Hoag Hospital. Susan Johnson is the nurse that manages, and here are nurses that are part of faith communities that have 33 churches and synagogue, and these are organizations where they're trying to intervene with patients before the problems develop and try to catch the pathology as early as possible.
That is so empowering to me, right? That a patient can predict, with some help from you and the support organization, how to avoid what can be sometimes such events that it's life-changing for them, right? If they don't prevent it 28 days later, the process could lead to even other unintended consequences, which may unfortunately be negative for your health.
Absolutely.
So avoid it at all costs.
Exactly,
right?
And it's simple to do. It's just step on a scale. Don't have to do anything else. Just do that.
Right. And then a larger, I believe in the power of peer learning and positive peer pressure as we get outside the therapeutic benefits of Heart Cloud to the weight management, to having a collective group of people who are in touch with their daily weight changes. That seems to me to be a big step forward in helping start to control obesity in this country, which is an epidemic, right? You said 30-some%?
It is, and it doesn't seem to be going. It's improved only marginally, but the consequences of that are just so profound. When type 2 diabetes, and then difficulty with legs and things that go on later on in life, is simply worth avoiding.
Right. It's a slippery slope, right? Because
really
they build on each other. Because once you lose your mobility, then your weight, and I mean, you're in a whole different situation, right? And Mark Cuban, I heard him. I think he goes monthly to have his blood drawn to do samples, because he believes you need to have a history of chart of your health rather than going and checking your blood against some industry average, let's say.
Correct.
And I would think for young children where obesity is a problem, if you start them out at a young age, managing their weight and these other factors, how much more of an informed teenager, adult could these people be if you take your child who's maybe 8 or 10 and begin? Can they do that? Can you take under 21 people and put them on your system?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
And I think that's the idea, is to be able to if we make small changes, it's so much easier. I would rather lose 2 pounds than 20, right?
Yes.
And so at some point, if we can identify these problems, I do it myself. If I get a little bit off the rail, I modify my behavior. It's not a big deal. If it becomes really large, then you buy it's hard to move around, and then you buy all these other problems.
Right. And
diabetes being a big part.
And then the weight, not the expense of the healthcare system gets put on top of you, right?
Correct.
Because you have to use the services that are very expensive. The more you can use the periphery of the healthcare system, the lower cost delivery systems, the better off I think you are and we are as a civilization.
Absolutely. And it's simple to do. I don't want the patient to have to think much more about it.
Right.
Just step on it. We'll do the thinking.
Right. And I love what you said earlier. You don't even have to look at it. If you don't like just don't even avert your eyes. Right. It doesn't matter.
I even tell them to put tape over it. It really doesn't.